Okay, so welcome everyone to our next Study Abroad podcast series. So today we have Kartikeya from Glasgow and he'll be sharing his journey about University of Glasgow with us. So welcome Kartikeya.
Hi Vishal. Hi.
Okay, hello. So Kartikeya, we have prepared some questions for you. So our very first question that we usually ask everyone is how was your initial decision of going to study abroad happened?
Okay. So it was a bit of a random decision actually, that there was no plan of going outside. But the thing is, during the intervening summer semester of my fourth and my fifth semester of my BTech, I had the opportunity to work with IIT Kanpur. So I did an internship there. It was a research internship, and I worked on malware. And I had a knack for research, and that's where I got my first paper from. So I sort of had an idea that research is my thing, and I wanted to try everything before that. And I worked, I graduated, I worked, I tried to join a company, didn't join the company. A lot of things happened, and finally, there were just two universities that I applied to, and I ended up going to Glasgow. So it was a very random decision, but mostly because I was interested in research.
Okay. So the other university which was in UK
Edinburgh,
only or somewhere else?
Edinburgh, UK.
Okay, so you already had a plan to go to Scotland, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
And how did you decide you should go to Scotland and not any other country?
So the thing is, my parents, they always wanted me to go abroad, but I already lived a bit in Brighton in England with my father during his PhD. So for 3.5 years we stayed there, and approximately in that, like, I was just a kid back then. So I think it was in 2004 to 2009. So like almost like 4 years almost. um, I had an idea of UK and how it works. So I knew I wanted to do something there. I had made up my mind of not going to the US, didn't like the work culture, I didn't really gel along with it. But Europe and UK were my top two choices. And in that, I feel like my heart always set with Scotland because I just like the people there. It was just a people thing, and that's where I wanted to stay. It was more like that, yeah.
So you did visit Scotland that time, is it?
Yes, of course, of course, of course. I was there all about. We were traveling a bit, and Scotland spoke to me a bit more. Yes.
Okay, okay, sure, sure. And what were the documents and the application process like for this two applications?
Okay, so the application procedure is like very straightforward, especially for any master's degree. So I'm doing my MSc in computing science. So any master's level course is pretty straightforward for me. I just needed my references from supervisors, my research work, things like that. And I needed documents from my BTech. So I needed my transcripts, I needed my degrees, my provisional, if I had a provisional, things of that nature. So I needed to fulfill their academic requirements in that way, references. And then additionally, I think I also needed some identity documents, but they weren't necessary. It was mostly just academic for the application.
And an English test, IELTS, TOEFL.
Yes. So the thing is, I did need an IELTS, but like the thing is that it wasn't really required because at the time I was applying, there's this new scheme where if you've studied from a CBSE board in India, they automatically recognize if you studied English core during your CBSE, which is compulsory, right? So in theory, you don't even have to give your IELTS exam. But I did have my IELTS score, so that was a plus point. Yes.
Okay. And then your initial flight, visa, etc. were all straightforward decisions, or you had any research done for that?
So the thing is, with flights, I met a couple of people online, and we had this group going on because there was some pre-talk and pre-offer engagement, talks that they do in various cities. So I was in Delhi at that time. I attended it. So we had a sort of a group, and everybody was going in two directions. So either they were taking Emirates, or they were so that is a flight that hops, and or they were choosing a direct flight, which is through British Airways. And I'd already had experience with British Airways because you can travel directly. So I was aware of how the flight works, how my baggage is going to come along, how the visa procedure will work for traveling. So I chose BA, and for the visa in particular, so that was a big procedure. So of course, for the visa, whatever was written on the website, whatever documents that they want, it's very clearly mentioned on the websites, and you need not submit anything more than that. It's good if you have some more, but you just stick to the list, and you'll be fine. That's what I did.
So how was your initial landing in Glasgow? Initial few hours, initial few days, how was the settlement like?
So I was traveling after a long time. And when I reached there, I think, of course, the weather, you'd notice the weather first. And beyond that, I think, yes, it felt familiar to me, but in a different way, because I was there as a child. So it felt very familiar. But yes, I mean, the people are very friendly. You'll get along with them very well. Just know how to talk and just express yourself, and you'll be fine. Beyond that, I think, you'll obviously notice one thing that is very different from India is, basic facilities. They'll be a bit better organized outside, but conversely, you'll be paying a lot for basic things and basic amenities. So those were the first thing that I noticed, but it was familiar to me. Yes.
And initially, the cooking, cleaning, washing, etc., you had to do by yourself. Whereas
Mhm.
maybe when you were back in India, it was not all done by yourself. Maybe how was that transition suited to you, and how did you like? Were you a bit mentally prepared? You knew all this maybe, but how was that?
So yeah, I think that's a good question. So I've always lived in a hostel, right? And prior to my studies, so I always had the mess. So cooking was, I mean, I didn't really cook that much, but I used to do just some basic cooking during my BTech, and that was all that I knew. So it was a bit of a shock. I think when I came for my masters, the cooking part is definitely a bit shocking if you don't know how to cook. Yes, I should have prepared for that. So if anyone is going, please do learn a bit of cooking. But I think cleaning was fine, because I've always grown up in an environment where we have a weekly schedule, we clean, and there's like different tiers of cleaning that you'd face if you go outside abroad to study. So there's your room, so that's your basic room and everything else, and then there's obviously your kitchen and your communal areas. So so those are the two places that you have to keep clean. You have to, you'll be cooking there, washing up there. So yes, if you're not used to cooking and if you're not used to cleaning, yes, it's a bit of a shock. But I think cleaning was fine for me. Cooking was definitely a shocker. Yes.
Sure. And how was your initial few days of the classroom? Like when you went to the classroom, let's say the first time, any shocking experience, anything that you saw, like very pleasant surprise, etc.?
So again, it's a contrast, right? So when we study over here, I was used to the grind that we have in India, a very dependent on the supervisors, very dependent on the teachers themselves. You have to be told everything that you need to do, and that's great. That's awesome. If you're young and if you're doing your bachelor's, it's really cool. But as soon as I went abroad, right? It's all very independent. So that's the first big change that I noticed. It's very independent. I mean, you wouldn't have a lot of instructions at all, actually. Everything was up to you. Assignments are up to you. Coming and going from the classes to the classes is up to you. I was actually shocked personally when I saw some people leaving the class in between the lectures. So I couldn't do that in India, right? So yes, it's very independent, and if you get a bad grade, then that's on you. But if you get a good grade, that's also on you. It's not really, the responsibility of the supervisor. They're just doing their job. So independence is something that hit me, and it took maybe like 2 or 3 months for me to adjust to that study environment. Yeah.
Any part-time job internships that you did go through or are going through or applying for?
Oh, okay. So I thought about part-time jobs before, but I was recommended. I talked to a couple of seniors as well, and of course, my father and my mother, because we stayed there, about getting into part-time jobs. But the thing is, for me, I want to get into a part-time job, but I didn't choose to get into it because I focused primarily on my studies. And I felt like it would be a good return. My advice would be if somebody is going there, I have a couple of friends who are actually traveling to Leeds and Warwick right now. So yes, if you're going there, if you cannot sustain living without the extra money, you should get a part-time. But if you can, then just focus on your studies and it should return. The value will come out of it as soon as you get a job. So I didn't go for a part-time. And regarding interns, yeah, so I applied for an intern back in November in Germany at the Max Planck Institute, Security and Privacy in Bochum. So I got the offer in January. So, but then of course, some visa regulations are there that don't allow me to leave UK for more than 3 months at a time. So if I leave for more than 3 months, I wouldn't be allowed to go back, and I can't present my thesis. I can't defend my thesis. I can't do anything like that. So I had to shift my internship, and I had to, ask my supervisor to get my internship contract from September. So yes, I do have an internship, but right now, nothing.
So this 3 months is the rule that only if you go outside UK, is it?
That's correct. That's correct. So it's I think I contacted the university first because I needed to leave, right? And I asked them because it's a summer vacation, because there's an Easter break, when can I leave, if I can leave at all? And they mentioned that if I leave, there's no guarantee that I would be coming back, because essentially they'd have to inform UKVI, which is UK visa. And then if they inform them, then my visa potentially can get, completely canceled. So it didn't make sense for me. Yes, there's a rule like that, so be careful.
What about your batchmates, like your classmates, etc.? They did internship, etc. within UK itself.
So there are a couple of people who I know personally who have decent internships in firms, in corporate firms. But other than that, they did part times, and that's what they're doing right now. They're looking for jobs. So internships are rare. People usually end up either getting a job or doing a part time and looking for jobs. Internships are fairly rare, in my opinion, in my field at least, in computer science. Yes.
Okay, sure. And what's your like future goal for the next few years? What's your plan like after you graduate and all?
Okay, so once I graduate, I basically have this internship at Max Planck, right? So I go there, I work with them for 4 maybe 5 months, depending on if I like it or not. And yeah, so I primarily work in blockchain, and that's what I did when before I came to the UK as well. I want to continue that and possibly go for my PhD right after that. So in 2025, I'll probably be going for my PhD somewhere in Germany or something like that. Yes.
So you have already made up your mind that you will be finishing a PhD and then maybe become a professor or a researcher like that.
So again, I can't plan for more than like 3 or 4 years. Lot of things change. I will definitely get into my PhD and finish it because I think research is my thing. The job, the cycle of jobs never really stuck with me. I tried to get into a few startups as well, never really stuck. So research is my thing. I think I'm good at it, and yes, I'll probably be staying in academia. Probably, yes.
Okay. You have like done any teaching to anyone? Like, have you taught anyone or part-time tutor, etc. like in your life so far or not yet?
Hmm. So I've given small like nitbits of free lectures in my old coaching institutes for maths, and because I like math, and things like that. I've conducted a couple of small lectures on blockchains in different institutes. I think I posted a couple of them on my LinkedIn as well. But yes, I've done a bit of that, but nothing formal as of now. Apart from that, I do have a lot of formal research experience. It's not a lot of research experience. I would say like 1.5 years. So yes, I have a bit of research experience, but teaching not so much, not so much.
So in India, there is this placement wing of each college, right? There is a placement department which does lot of placement. Whereas in developed countries like UK, Scotland, there is nothing as such. They might felicitate the interviews, etc., but usually there is no placement cell or something like that. So, do you see this as a drawback or a positive side, or how do you cope up with this?
I mean, it's a very, it's a very common response, but I'd like to give it the same way that everyone does. It depends. It really depends on you. It can be a very good thing if you're an independent thinker and you're an independent doer. So, an independent, like you don't have a placement cell over here. So the thing is that you have to look for your own jobs, do your own cold emailing. If you do your cold emailing, that is, and talk to everyone, connect, make more connections, do your thing. If that's something that you can do, and if that is something that you think you're good at, is great. But if not, you'd be in a lot of trouble, and you'd have to adapt very quickly because, yes, as you said, there's no help. Nobody's holding your hand. It's very independent, your studies and your placement. So there's no help. You got to do everything on your own. It just depends on the kind of person you are.
What about your housing experience? Were you able to find a housing before? Were you able to find housing before you joined Glasgow, or you did it before? I mean, after coming there.
Okay, so I applied very late, and I would not recommend that people do that. I applied a bit late, but the people who applied early, they got housing and accommodations very quickly. For me, it was a bit of a risky, maneuver that I did. So I applied late, and University of Glasgow, just like any other big university, they would arrange your accommodation if you apply with them. However, because I applied late, it's not guaranteed that I'd get the accommodation. Luckily, I did. I landed a university accommodation, and it works in two different ways, right? So if you're going abroad, especially to the UK, the first way is that your university gives you your accommodation, which essentially means, in a nutshell, your university acts as your landlord. So everything goes through the university and comes back to you. The accommodation services are not responsible for anything, right? Which is a good thing in a way. You don't have to deal with anything, any corporate hassle. Um, but beyond that, if you don't get an accommodation, the second thing is that you have to find one on your own. Luckily, I did not have that problem. But if you do go through that, or if you want a cheaper accommodation and than the one you got from the university, then you'd have to go through that route, and that means your landlord is basically the accommodation service itself.
Sure. And in the education standards, what are the obvious differences you saw, like India versus UK or India versus Scotland?
Can you give me a bit more context,
Yeah.
like anything in
So,
particular?
like, I asked you this question in a very brief way that, when you entered the classroom, what was your experience like a few
Yeah.
minutes ago? So, I'm asking you to maybe elaborate that a bit more. Like, now you have studied a bit longer. So, and you have studied in India also for significant number of years. So, how do
Yeah.
you see the comparison? Like, what were the key differences that you can maybe share with the audience?
Of course, of course. So the first thing is it's very hands-on, in my opinion. It's very, very hands-on. So you're expected to attend your classes, and you won't hear somebody giving you a lecture all the time. You're probably going to hear somebody ask you to do something, participate, do maybe a GD, something like that. And that's very cool, and that's very good for courses like mine, courses that are more applied in nature. Anything in computer science, anything in STEM, basically anything in STEM, that's great. So the first point is it's going to be hands-on. The second point I would say is, again, I'm just going to elaborate a bit more on the independent aspect of it. See, even if you're being asked to do something in the classroom, anything else beyond that is your responsibility. So again, that's going to be a big shock to a lot of people, and it's very different compared to our universities in India, because essentially, if you're asked to do something in India, you're going to get five reminders, and then there's going to be five assignments that are checked over and over again. You're marked constantly. But in the UK, especially in my university, so any university in the Russell Group, what it's going to be like is you're going to get an assignment. You're going to be told that you're going to receive this percentage of your entire degree on this assignment, right? And that's your grade forever. If you forget to do that, if you mess that assignment up, it's on you. And nobody's going to give you reminders up till the last minute of submission. So you have to be on your toes constantly because it's all independent. You have to remember your assignments, track your details, just be an adult. In my in a nutshell, just be an adult, track everything. It's very independent. And the third and final thing is, I think if you want help, it's available, but you're going to have to ask for it. So nobody's coming up to you constantly asking if you're doing fine, if you're doing well, but all the facilities are available. So essentially, you have to get out of your comfort zone and ask people for help. And I think that's something that we Indians lack. We tend to slack on over and over again. We try and get through the motions, but when you need help, just ask for it and it's there. They'll gladly help you. But if you don't, you're on your own. So these three things are very different compared to our studies.
So there is a bit of a more independence that is forced on you, that you have to become more
Yes,
go-getter.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so we are coming to the very last question of our podcast. What's the advice that you would like to give to your juniors who are study abroad aspirants as of now, like one or two advices that maybe you wanted for yourself, or you think that most people don't have that in general?
Hmm. So there's just one whole there's a big LinkedIn post that I made long time ago on addressing the same issue, and I'm just going to kind of repeat like that. It's the decision that, if you decide to go abroad, it has to be a very, very, like very well informed decision about one single question: why do you want to go abroad? And the way I do it is, you can bifurcate it into different, branches of the tree. So a couple of people might have a reason is that, you want access to a higher economy, right? You want a better job, of course, the better standards of living. Great, that's a good reason. You can definitely try. But the thing is, you have to be then aware of the risks that come under that tree, right? So my advice, like a very blunt advice, and of course, take this with a grain of salt. If you need to take a if you need to take a student loan, and you want access to a better economy, I would advise against that. Don't leave your jobs. Don't take a student loan. Save up the money and come a bit later. The master's isn't running, right? The PhD isn't running. You can come later. The second advice, the second branch, there's just three. So the second branch would be, if you're genuinely interested in studying, right, academics, like if you're genuinely interested in academics, mm, be my guest, take the student loan and go for it. Because if you're genuinely interested, you are going to do something about it. Academia is very big. People who say there's no scope in it, I think they're missing the point here. So if you really like academics, you like your research, do it. And I think STEM is a very good, branch to do that. And the third reason is, so the third is a very vague bubble. And I would say it's for people who are not like they're not aware of why they want to come, and they try and throw around all these reasons. But the reality is, you're just running from some responsibility, or you're just running from something, and you just want to leave your country, right? You want a citizenship, or you just want to leave your country, you want better air quality or something like that. My advice is, go back to the first two. Think about those two first. If that's what you need, you should do it. If not, choose wisely.
Sure. Thank you very much. So know your why, like why you want to do this. The better the
Absolutely.
answer, the better the career path would be. Okay,
That's the
Kartikeya,
message.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and it was nice knowing about your experience, and hope our audience will learn something from your podcast. So thank you very
Sure.
much. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. You too, Vishal. Thank you. Bye bye.